I'm reading something written over 2,000 years ago, or I will be reading something that was written 2,000 years ago. I'm going to be reading something that was written by a man named Paul to another man named Timothy. Now, this is 2,000 years ago. To act like that Paul is still preaching is wrong. You shouldn't think that Peter is still preaching. I mean, I am going to be considered, as a preacher. And as a preacher, I am preaching. I have been preaching since I turned on the video. I will be reading as soon as I looked onto the script that's written here and read from it. So there's a difference between reading and preaching, although you can read while you preach, or at least I can. At least I think I can. But Paul wrote a letter to a person that he had spent days with. He had spent years with him. He had known him for quite some time. And Paul had a conversion experience like no other person that you're going to read about. Everyone that has a conversion experience, they have their experience. And it's not going to change. And everyone does not have the same experience. Because you cannot have been converted, 2,000 years ago. If you are converted, you're going to have to be converted today. And it's not going to be to yesterday. No. So I'm preaching, and I'm hoping somebody gets converted, to today. But there was a time before, Paul and Timothy's time. It was Moses' time. Now, Moses had 120 years. I haven't had 120 years. Moses grew up in covenant with God, although he was not circumcised. And you say, well, how can a person be in covenant with God and not be circumcised? Well, God's got a covenant. And Moses had quite a few experiences before Moses was circumcised. And I am certainly not an advocate of circumcision. No. I would not advise anyone to become circumcised to get into a covenant with God. God required for Moses to be circumcised, and when God required it, Moses became circumcised. Until then, he wasn't circumcised. After that day, he was. But this is going to be about Timothy and Paul. And we'll get to that in the next video.